Okay, welcome to another episode of Most Men. How y'all doing out there? Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, smash that subscribe button, comment. We need some comments. We're on Rumble. Come to Rumble and make sure you smash the Rumble button. We're on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. JoinTheMen'sClub.com is the website, and contact at JoinTheMen'sClub.com is the email if you want to email out to us. But come to Rumble. We're starting to get a little we're gaining some traction over there.
Good, yeah. Rumble's a much better platform.
Yeah, so we got the man O'Shea's back.
Man, it feels like it's been about a year since the last time I was here, even though it was just last week.
A lot of stuff's happened, man.
Yeah, well, I know Steve Bannon says there are decades where nothing happens and there's years where decades happen. That's kind of what the last week's felt like.
Yeah, I bet for you, for sure.
Yeah.
Because I voted on, so the 5th was when it started. I voted the next day.
Right.
And, man, our little districts were packed. I've never seen that many people out.
No, look, this election, I'm telling everybody, there is a groundswell, and it's unlike anything anybody's ever seen before. I mean, it's just people are fired up. They're mad. I mean, they can go on TV and try and lie to people all they want about how good the country's going, how there's not a problem at the border, that crime isn't up, but people's lived experiences tell them that they're being lied to, and they're just furious because it's readily apparent that every single problem we're going through right now, the illegal invasion, inflation, this whole kind of energy crisis, and all these constant threats of entering into a new third world war. I mean, these are all self-inflicted. None of these things were just visited upon us. These have all been by design.
Yeah. Well, no, and I was listening to, I'm a huge UFC fan, and Dana White was in a podcast with some football player. I can't remember who, but that's what he was saying. He's like, it's not just we already knew where he stood.
Right.
But all these big guys that have got voices and platforms, they're going right at him. And he said the most hated people right now in America is politicians and the media. Well, the politicians that we all know need to go
are lying to us.
Yeah.
Basically, telling us that they're one thing when really, they're
and we're not
else.
dumb, but we're sick of it.
Well, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. So the guy that I'm running against, State Representative Craig Goldman, he's running commercials nonstop. I mean,
I know, I've heard
he
him.
raised a bunch of money. And in it, he's showing that he's with the National Guard. He's on the border. He's so concerned about border security. He's also talking about election integrity. He's really for these things. Well, he conveniently forgets that in May of last year, there was a measure that would have been on our ballot in November for a constitutional amendment here in Texas that stipulated you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote in Texas elections. Because we all know the Democrats are trying to replace us as voters, and that's why you see, like, the Supreme Court just weighed in and said, the New York Supreme Court, and said that, no, New York City can't allow illegal immigrants to vote in elections. It has to be U.S. citizens and citizens of New York. So they want to replace us as voters. And Republican Chamber of Commerce types, they want to replace us, with labor, cheaper labor, and growing consumer markets. Well, so again, he runs on border security and election integrity, and last May, this measure passed the Senate, sailed through the Senate 29-1, so only one Democrat voted against it, said you must be a U.S. citizen to vote in Texas elections. It died in the House, and it died because Republicans voted with Democrats. They couldn't even vote no on that. They just voted present, meaning the bill didn't get the number of yes votes it needed to pass. It got killed by 12 votes. There are 12 Republicans who are notorious for their teaming up and working with the Democrats. In fact, Texas Scorecard calls them the Dirty Dozen. Craig Goldman is prominently featured in it.
Yeah.
And he's part of that cabal, and he's seeking a promotion to go from the Texas legislature to go to D.C. and represent the district.
So when they have to look you in the face, because you go to Austin, I mean, you have to be around all that. So how are they in person when they have to look you in the eye?
So it's interesting. He really has tried to avoid me.
These people that do this is what I'm asking.
Right, yeah, no. They tend to try and avoid you. And then when you're around them in person, they try and just give soft pleasantries like, "Oh, hello, John, good to see you." And if you confront them or approach them and say something like, how do you sleep at night knowing that you bald-faced lie about who you are and what your voting record is to the people in this district? How do you sleep at night? They tend to turn around and walk off the other direction. I mean, they
just
don't,
cowards.
Yeah, they don't want to be confronted with that kind of thing.
I don't get it, man. I don't get how you could just carry yourself, a man or woman, how you could carry yourself knowing that your life is a lie.
Somehow they managed to do it. I mean, they they accept money from lobbyists. They crave power and attention more. So, in fact, so since that was last year, we've been working the polling centers. We have an army of people out there kind of electioneering, meaning telling people, hey, look, these are our conservative candidates. These are who the precinct chairs have picked. This is who all the grassroots organizations pick. Craig Goldman only has one endorsement, and that's called the link letter. And let me give a little inside baseball to your audience again. The link letter is run by this supposed religious radio host down in Houston, and he's putting out there what he's calling the Christian conservative slate of candidates that they're recommending, and they mail them to everybody. Everybody who's registered to vote Republican gets them in the mail. People open them up, tend to look and say, okay, well, gosh, I don't know all the different judges. I don't know. I'll bring this voter guide in with me. Well, what they conveniently left out is that Craig Goldman was their selection because he wrote a check for $16,000. So he bought that endorsement. I know one candidate who tried to send in the check, found out that they had already gotten more money from another candidate, and so they turned around and mailed that check back to that person.
Wow.
So, yeah, and this is a Christian conservative, newsletter telling you who to vote for. So our volunteers literally have taken a compilation of all the different grassroots organizations, the True Texas Project, We the People, Grassroots America, Tarrant County Patriots, Tarrant County Precinct Chairs, all these different groups. And then they just give a scorecard and say, John O'Shea has the endorsements of these 6 different grassroots groups. Craig Goldman has the one from the link letter, but it's a pay-for-play service. So they're educating the voters when they see them walking in with the link letter saying, hey, did you know that that's a paid advertisement?
That's
not
good.
Really an endorsement. Yeah, so we've been out doing those, and then it was Thursday or Friday night. The days are all running together. One of my campaign supporters is this fantastic woman, Karen Wiseman, who God knows how she gets involved in all these organizations, but the one cause that's really true and near and dear to her heart is this foundation she runs called the 5 Stones. The 5 stones that David had to slay Goliath. Of course, he only needed the one. But what they do is they go and rescue people from human sex trafficking and then try and rehabilitate them and reintegrate them back into society, because so many times they've been so abused and so traumatized over this period that, it's just kind of getting people set back up and re-entered into normal, polite society is, really overwhelming for them and a source of great anxiety and depression. Well, she ran this seminar over at Birchman Baptist Church this past weekend. Well, the keynote speaker for it was Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who, 3-star general, served President Trump, was probably the most feared person in Trump's administration and his whole cabinet, which is why they went after him so badly. And then they've since subsequently admitted, basically it was an FBI entrapment issue, that he had a conversation with his Russian counterpart prior to being sworn in, but just trying to normalize relationships. Then the FBI came in and interviewed him, and he, being the good patriot that he is, was trying to be accommodating, not realizing that they were doing, kind of a perjury trap on him. And then that's when they used the information and said, well, he actually lied, to FBI agents when he didn't know he was being interrogated or grilled, or, and again, whatever mistake he may or may not have made, the transcript shows that I don't think he actually lied. I think he just, he used one word and then they turned around and used another term and put words in his mouth that he didn't actually say.
Right, exactly what they always do.
But they drummed him out of that cabinet because he was military intelligence. He was the person who Obama warned Trump about, because he was somebody who was going to go in and talk about all the failures of the U.S. intelligence agencies and networks and the IC, the intelligence community, about how they'd been lying about Afghanistan, how they'd been lying about Iraq, that, the situation on the ground wasn't what they were purporting, and they were spending money wastefully, and just, the cause was not what they were putting out there. And so they got him out. So anyway, I met him, spent about 15 minutes with him, and man, an amazing man. It's he continues to fight for this country, and you think about how he was drugged through the ringer, and
You lost everything, man.
Yeah, well,
is he building back?
Yeah, and he's
probably got a lot of support behind him too.
Well, he does, because people understand.
They
him
know
now.
what happened to him.
They know that he absolutely is a martyr for the American First cause. And I mean, look, everybody who stands up and fights for the people in this country, they all get attacked the same way. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. We're seeing, President Donald John Trump. We're seeing my good friend Attorney General Ken Paxton. So, in fact, and that's why I'm dressed in a suit. Not that I don't want to always look nice for your audience.
You look fantastic, John.
Yeah, but Ken Paxton was out at a Get Out the Vote event for another friend of mine. Remember, I've told you that we're trying to replace the people in the Texas legislature. Well, the guy who's running against me right now, Craig Goldman, he vacated his seat to run for this, for Congress. So I'm supporting Cheryl Bean to run for that seat. Even though the Texas legislature has 86 Republicans to only 64 Democrats, it's run, as I said, like a Democrat organization. There are really probably only 4 really diehard conservatives on there who have the bravery to face the fire and not worry about, the fallback. And we need more people like Cheryl Bean to go buttress their numbers. But she had also 2 other of the state reps, Nate Schatzline, who's up in the Keller area and very involved in the Mercy Culture Church, and then Brian Harrison. And I don't remember exactly where Brian's from, but those are 2 of the brave ones who are always, putting it on the line and just saying, I'm going to vote my principles and represent my district and the people the way they want, not, well, let's go along to get along kind of politics. And it was funny because Ken's eyesight is really bad. I know people have actually commented on social media in a very cruel manner that, he's got one eye that's messed up. Well, a guy in a pickup basketball game when he was in college got fed up with him and actually literally elbowed him in the face and caved in his face. And so that was all from reconstructive surgery. And his vision's bad. Yeah. So I'm sitting at the table in the front, and he starts talking about the impeachment vote, how he needs more people brave to stand up because it was Republicans who colluded with the Democrats, that colluded with the Biden Department of Justice. And he goes, like Craig Goldman was, and I kind of raised my hand, and all of a sudden he looked down and he goes, oh, John, I didn't see you there. Hey, everybody, you need to vote for John O'Shea because this gentleman I'm talking about right now, Craig Goldman, not only doesn't deserve a promotion to Congress, but I've known John O'Shea for 20 years. I know that when things get tough, he's going to stand up and do the right thing. I've seen him make hard decisions. He's the person we need to support. So that was cool to be at. And then over the weekend, we also had this controversy that kicked up, and it's funny. Like I said, I've got all these volunteers who are doing things that I'm not even aware of.
1 second before you get to that, I want to ask one question. Is because I think that you know the feeling, I know the feeling. I think everybody knows the feeling. Is that this has inspired us to get involved, everybody. But what I'm saying, my question is, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are willing to take on that onslaught. Because if you can survive it, you come out 10 times better and bigger.
Come out stronger, sure.
And now there's the support system in place. Like we're not taking this anymore. You know what I mean?
Hey, Ken was beloved before all of this.
Yeah.
But now he's a rock star. I mean, and he's so gracious and he's so humble with people. In fact, so after the event, I went back where his security detail was and took some pictures with him and was talking with them. In fact, it was funny. I was on John Solomon from Real America Voice, and he broadcasts out of D.C., and Ken was just up in D.C. trying a case before the Supreme Court, and he spoke to John Solomon. In fact, Solomon had told me before we went on live on air that, I had spoken to Ken about you, and he was very gracious, said he's known you a long time, blah, blah, blah. So Ken said, hey, I heard you were up in D.C. And I said, no, I wasn't in D.C. He goes, well, John Solomon said he was having you on. I go, well, Ken, I can do a remote broadcast from my office in Fort Worth, Texas. And he goes, oh, yeah, I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
But, no, you're right. I mean, Ken is tremendously more popular now because they brought attention to it and they saw how unjust it was. That's the thing. They keep trying to bamboozle the average American voter because
we're not bamboozled no more.
No, well, I mean, they keep doubling down, and when people actually saw, now you have some people who just listened to the media and didn't actually watch the Senate trial because that's where people actually got to hear the evidence that was non-existent, and that everything that was known to the voters when they overwhelmingly reelected Ken Paxton, there was nothing new turned up. I mean, you had disgruntled employees, and you had allegations of Ken having an extracurricular relationship. Well, okay, that's between him, Angela, and God. The voters didn't care about that. That's not an impeachable offense. And, Ken is this true champion, fighting for us. And so he's taking the slings and arrows. So,
well, you're jumping in the fire doing the same thing, man.
Well, and so here's the funny thing. So the first thing that started off was apparently I am over the target because over the weekend, these mailers started coming out from this PAC out of Las Vegas, calling me saying John O'Shea admits that he's not a conservative. We can't vote for John O'Shea. We need a conservative in office. And I looked and I go, who's this PAC out of Las Vegas? Well, I dig into it and find out that's Kevin McCarthy's PAC.
Oh, dear God.
So Kevin McCarthy is working to get Craig Goldman elected and is trying to take out America First candidates again. And it's not just me he's targeting. He's targeting Brandon Gill up in Congressional District 26, which was Michael Burgess' seat. And Brandon Gill's already been endorsed by President Trump. And so
I saw his – is that up north?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw his billboard on the way back. I went to WinStar this weekend.
Yeah, well, he's Dinesh D'Souza's son-in-law, so he got a lot of money, and the Congressional or the Freedom Caucus has weighed in and contributed to his campaign as well.
I saw his billboard on the way home.
He's got a much bigger budget to work with than I do.
Yeah.
But so I'm getting these mailers dropped on me, and the funny thing is people who've ever heard me speak go, well, this is just absolutely ridiculous, and the fact that they're attacking him makes me want to vote for him all the more. And the few people who see it and go, well, I didn't think I was for Craig Goldman, but what's this about? I mean, in fact, at the Ken Paxton, Cheryl Bean, rally today, this older couple came up and said, well, we've heard some disconcerting things about you. And I started laughing, and they go, well, we thought there was probably a story, but do you care explaining this? And I said, yeah, I'll tell you. I did say I used to call myself a conservative. In fact, I think I said on this show before basically the same narrative, which is when they eviscerate our Constitution, when they tell us that our work is not essential, when they say that we can't go to our places of worship, when they say that our kids can't go to school, have to socially distance, be masked, vaccinated, when they say that parents petitioning at a school board are domestic terrorists and are being surveilled, when they say that somebody praying the rosary outside an abortion clinic, is being raided by the FBI, then I ask, what the hell do we have left to conserve? So I call myself and consider myself a restorer now. And when I told them that, the look of relief on their face was incredible. They're like, oh, we're so glad to hear that. That made coming to this all worthwhile. We just knew there had to be some story like that.
Yeah, and that I want you to get to what the next thing or was that what you were talking about?
Well, that was the first thing that was kind of shocking, and it's funny. My campaign manager was a little upset about it, and I just started laughing. I said, look, this is just the enemy showing their hand, and you knew the attacks were coming, and candidly speaking. So that was the first one, that John O'Shea admits he's not a conservative. The second one came out and said the same thing, but then said, I am weak on the border and I'm soft on crime. And I thought, well, wait a second, I've never held public office before, so what are you basing that on? Because certainly I never said anything to that. There's not been the increase of crime in our area because we are in a conservative-run area with a Republican mayor, Republican sheriff, Republican county judge. So we don't have the spike in crime. So I haven't specifically addressed.
We all carry too.
Well, yeah, there's that too, and I'm a proud supporter of the Second Amendment. But so I haven't personally addressed crime. Just again, who is actually for it or soft on it? That would be the Democrats, but. I have been very vocal about the border and, build a wall, remain in Mexico, declare the cartel enemy combatants, deport everybody who entered this country illegally. If that's soft on immigration, okay. Well, like I said before, my opponent actually voted to allow illegal aliens to, in essence, vote here in Texas. So I'm definitely much more stronger on the border than
you are. Well, no, but my point about all that, but when I ask that is that you can just feel it. You see it.
Right.
Okay. We're feeling it.
Yep.
Right. Is that, and I don't know many people besides you, and I remember when you started, but I see it like with the signs that are out, or people that I know that are ex-business people that had very good lives that are jumping in. And, like, I think that Trump, Paxton, people like you, people that are doing what y'all are doing, y'all are in the fight. Okay. It's inspiring other people to say, hey, money's not everything anymore, man. I've had a great life. I'm getting to that point where I don't know if I want to run a big business again.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know if I want that. I don't know if I want the headache of, you've dealt with employees and just all the stuff. But you feel it and you're seeing it now. You really get to see it. But I'm saying to everybody out there that people are getting involved in this to sweep these crooked politicians out of we got to get them out of there, man. We are in a real fight between good versus evil. Yeah. I mean, this is real.
No, it is. And look, I mean, the enemy's showing their hand. I mean, they're doubling down. So, I forgot to mention the most important part about meeting Lieutenant General Flynn. So all my supporters are coming up and saying, hey, we need to get this man in office. He's doing this. He's running like this, blah, blah, blah. So I was in kind of a VIP event for him. I was invited by a guest. And so when I went to take my picture with him, he said, hey, look, whatever I can do to help you on your campaign, would my endorsement help? And I said, yeah, no, I would love to be endorsed by you, General Flynn. I mean, you're actually somebody I look up to and admire. I mean, your patriotism and your courage and bravery to stay, committed to the cause. So, yeah, so I got that endorsement, had the mailers come out against me. And then over the weekend, apparently this scandal broke out called Signgate, I guess. It's the only way I can think to. So as I mentioned before about how, like, my volunteers are doing things just on their own accord and just, like, having banners printed up and then going to overpasses and hanging them, waving banners and flags, at passing traffic. And in fact, I had a couple of people call me specifically from that because they said, hey, anybody who's got supporters like this, I need to get to meet and learn about.
It's pretty smart, though.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that they did it. Well, one of the other things that apparently they did was they had these signs printed up that said, voted to impeach Ken Paxton with an arrow pointing to it. And they went up to all of Craig Goldman's big signs and started putting these signs right next to it with the arrow pointing to it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because, a lot of people don't know. I mean, and hey, look, it could cut either way. Like I said, the people who were low propensity and just believed what the news told them, maybe they thought that Ken was corrupt when they didn't really hear the facts and understand that there was really nothing there.
Well, it's just the sheep out there that are just blindly muddling through life.
Well, I think they did. Again, I don't know because I wasn't involved in this, although I think it's hilarious and I completely support it. But they printed up 50 to 100 of these signs and went and put them all around. Well, within that day, most of them were stolen, gone. And the funny thing of it was, there was a friend of mine who's a constable. I'll have to bring on here sometime.
Yeah, they stole your signs.
Well, they weren't my signs. They were the signs that the volunteers had printed up that said, voted to impeach Ken Paxton with the arrow pointing. Right. Signs. So, yeah, they were stealing those because they didn't want the truth getting out there. They didn't want people having that front of mind. Well, so, again, I haven't witnessed this, but the person who did and filed the police report actually is a friend of mine and a law enforcement officer. He's at a polling location with a friend of mine who's actually out there, volunteering for the campaign. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden this truck pulls up, gentleman gets out, walks up to the sign that said voted to impeach Ken Paxton, pulls it up, throws it in the back of his truck, starts to drive off. Well, he goes, oh my gosh, that guy's stealing the sign. So he starts taking pictures. Well, as the car comes around, he sees who it is and he takes a picture of it as well, calls and phones it into the police. Now, again, this is alleged because innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But he ID'd the man positively and said that was Eric Fox, who is the head of government affairs for Lockheed. So,
whoa.
Yeah, so whoa. And it turns out that all the Lockheed executives are supporting my opponent, Craig Goldman. So if you want to know a person, you can take a look at their enemies. And apparently I am enemy number one of Kevin McCarthy and the military-industrial defense complex. So
wow. You should pat yourself on the back.
Well, so that attributed one sign being stolen. Then we had a candidate who's actually running against Cheryl Bean admit that she stole and took down a bunch of the other signs because she didn't know the election laws. She thought they were illegal. Well, no, the people who printed them up apparently know a lot more about the laws than, in the election rules than I do. In fact, I often have to turn to them and say, hey, I'm a first-time candidate. What's the rule about this, or what's that? And these people are really dedicated. So they had followed it. So she's admitted to it. She's returning those. But then you had another person actually take a picture of it and post it on Facebook, not understanding that she's just now admitting to a misdemeanor with a $300 fine. And oh, by the way, if you're caught stealing more than one, it actually goes up to a felony.
That's what I was going to say. That's illegal. You can't rip down political signs, can you?
Nope, you cannot. It doesn't matter how much it infuriates you. Everybody has a constitutional amendment to freedom of speech, and those signs are freedom of speech. In fact, I had a bunch of people get mad about the mailers that came out saying John O'Shea admits he's not a conservative, and they're like, well, this is slander, you should be able to sue. And I go, no, you don't understand, that's free speech. And they go, well, slander isn't free speech. And I go, hey, when you enter into politics, it's all fair game. I mean, they can just outright lie about me.
Yeah, but the truth is winning more than the lies now.
Right. No, that part's...
And I think people are seeing that. Yep. If you got to slander somebody, then let's look underneath your hood.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel, and I think everybody that I've talked to, if you got to pull that game again,
well, like I said,
let's look under their hood.
I'm not trying to give them any ideas, but I was shocked that was the best that they could come up with. They couldn't say something like, John O'Shea was caught, in cahoots with the cartel, smuggling illegal aliens across the border. I mean, just some crazy fictitious story, but to just say he admits he's not a conservative. Well, okay, most people have heard me say that. In fact, it's out on the internet. I mean, I've given that speech or that talk multiple times publicly. So anybody who goes, oh, well, they just took that out of context. I mean, it doesn't mean he's a liberal. He's a conservative. He just means they've attacked the Constitution, and they don't believe it's worth the paper it's printed on. So,
well, I think they keep doubling down because they know that they're losing. They're going to lose in the long run if we keep this momentum up. Yeah. I mean, everybody. That's what I'm saying. It's everybody. I'm not saying everybody, but anybody with a brain in their head that's got some drive, they're getting involved with this, man. This. Hell, I don't even think. Well, I mean, the news is on just because the news is on, but nobody watches the news anymore.
Well, I mean, so that's the funny thing is because I don't watch the news. I don't watch TV in general.
I don't either.
I watch podcasts like this or, things of that nature to kind of get informed. I mean, I watch Steve Bannon or I watch Charlie Kirk or I watch Dan Bongino or,
I love Dan Bongino.
Yeah. Well, my campaign manager actually got him his engagement with Fox. He actually worked with Dan Bongino. I still haven't met him yet.
I went to his book signing and I couldn't get in, but I gave the guy that was standing at the front of the line. I don't know if he got it. The guy could have kept it, but I took 45.
Oh, the man card.
Yeah, I said, give this to Dan. So I haven't heard anything. But.
Well, but yeah, I mean, so it's funny. So everybody comes up to me and they go, "Well, how do you feel? How are things going?" And first of all, they get a little concerned that I don't look stressed out, and I'm like, "No, things are going well." I mean. You just told me that you guys just voted for me. Well, every single person who's coming up to me says, hey, I just voted for you, or I'm going to vote for you, or answer me about this mailer because I thought you were conservative. And, oh, okay, great. Now I'm going to go vote for you. So, in fact, we've even had people watching the polls and handing out these cards saying, hey, look, these are all the grassroots endorsements. And if you flip it on the back, this is a poll from the precinct chairs of who the most conservative candidates are in all these races. We encourage you to vote for them. Oh, great. Thank you. Well, every once in a while, somebody will be walking up with the link letter, like I said, which is the paid, to play endorsement list, and which Craig Goldman has a big ad in it, and he's featured as their choice for CD12. But I've had people say that they're walking in and they'll say, "Oh, hey, that's pay for play. You don't vote for Craig Goldman, vote for John O'Shea." And they go, "Oh no, I already know." And they've already crossed out his name on that and circled my name or have a star next to my name or something. So,
can y'all keep track of the votes, or is it just polls right now?
Yeah, it's just polling. I mean, they are running the mail-in votes now at the counting headquarters. So the votes are being tabulated. Early votes are coming in. They're already starting to be processed. We've got, it's a week from today. I mean, so early voting will continue.
But do y'all get to see that, or do you have to wait till the 5th?
Well, what we can see is the number of votes cast in the Republican primary and the Democrat primary. We can see it by area, and we can also see it by race. So I know how many votes have already come in for my race on the Republican side.
Okay.
So I'm estimating that there's probably going to be, at the end of the day, about 85,000 votes cast in the Republican primary for the 12th Congressional District. Last I checked, and I'll be honest with you, the polls were opened over Sunday too. It was pretty light, nice weather. And so while they were busy throughout the week, the weekend was pretty light. Gosh, I want to say that there were already, 20,000 votes already cast because, it's between Parker and Tarrant County. And so the early voting will continue from 7 in the morning till 7 in the evening, all the way through Friday. Then the polls close Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday, Super Tuesday, and that's game day. That's it. That's the primary election. And as I keep saying, in this race, because it's an R+18 district, this is a primary race. So if I win this race outright, I'm the candidate going on the ballot for the Republican side in November. I would have to really screw it up royally to lose it at that point in time with such a heavily Republican-leaning district. But there's also a good chance, because there are 5 of us in the field, that nobody gets 50 plus 1, which is what it requires to win it outright. And in that case, it goes to the top 2 vote getters going to a runoff. Then that goes till late May. The other people who entered in the race after me, so Craig Goldman was kind of the presumptive favorite because he was backed by the establishment. He's who Kay Granger tapped. He had all this money. Karl Rove was throwing him a fundraiser. Lockheed was doing fundraisers for him. I mean, you had all this lobbyist and PAC money coming in. And I didn't care. We just kept putting our nose to the grindstone and working away and, getting $10 here and $100 there and just, doing our grassroots thing. Well, like I said, we've caught their attention for sure. But the other 3 people who are in there, and look, 2 of the 3 I think are in it for the right reasons and legitimate and running clean campaigns. The third person I think is a plant that was meant to just be an attack person on me and to take away votes from me, which I don't know how effective he's doing right now. And frankly, I kind of laugh because he gets real frustrated because I don't pay any attention to him, and neither does the media or the social media for that matter. And so
that's the only way to deal with a bully.
Well,
or not a bully, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Remind me off air, and I'll share some choice stories about him.
Yeah, no, you have.
But anyway, those 3 all are kind of running as non-establishment type. I wouldn't say they're America first, but they're clearly not the establishment rhino type Republican candidates. And so if it boils down to Craig and myself, then I think that obviously, 75, 80% of those people would peel away to me. And so if he doesn't, come real close to winning outright in a runoff, I think I got it pretty easily. Again,
question is, does he have to debate you in a runoff?
Well, he's failed to debate me yet.
I know, that's why I'm asking. It's not going to that. We're getting him in office. I've already put it out in the universe, and I'm not even thinking that way. But does he have to if that happens?
I don't know that they can make him. I mean, I will say this. Oh, that's the other thing, too, that's really funny about this. When you've got somebody frazzled. So there was a sighting of him over the weekend also at one of the polling locations. In fact, the one where Signgate, no, it wasn't the one where Signgate happened, but it was one where some of the signs were stolen. And the 2 people who were volunteering for my campaign and for Cheryl Bean's campaign, which is, it's very effective to be able to have volunteers be able to handle, 2 different candidates. And like I said, we're allies. And so, I'm hoping she goes and is a fierce warrior down in Austin, and I go up to D.C. and do the same thing in D.C. Well, they both happen to be precinct chairs, in the Tarrant County Republican Party. They both happen to be people who've had very negative run-ins with Craig Goldman, where, they've gotten into shouting matches at each other. One of them is a funny lady who is really, really bright and really bears a grudge. And so she'll show up at places that she knows he's going to be at just to be there and constantly in his field of vision to unsettle him. So when he showed up, I think he was going up there to work the polls, to talk to the voters. Hi, I'm Craig Goldman. I'm running for office, which is what I do. I mean, I don't get out in front of people, but I'm like waving at people, thanking them for voting. And then if one of the volunteers gets somebody who says, "Oh no, I'd actually really like to meet him," or "Oh, I just voted for you," then you're there to be able to interact with the voters. Well, he stood there by himself with his arms crossed right in front of the sign, Craig Goldman, for Congress, and then the sign pointing, going, "Voted to impeach Ken Paxton." And he just sat there and looked at it, and he didn't talk to anybody. He didn't do anything. And these two women got on either side of him and then started electioneering for me and pointing out, "No, by the way, that's Craig Goldman, who in fact did vote to impeach Ken Paxton." I don't know if his brain's broken or what, but he just stood there and kind of took it and sat off by himself without talking to the voters for about an hour before he got in his car and left. I don't know what the point of all that was.
He was probably trying to just say, "I'm going to stay here as long as I can before I get." Yeah, he probably wanted to leave right then.
Oh, I'm sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, look, if you know,
I'm going to show that I'm fearless over here by myself.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to slowly get out of here when nobody's looking.
I'll give a plug to these two ladies because I know they won't mind having their names associated, but they are fierce warriors, and really to become dear friends. But Amy Super, who is the area leader for Craig's district, and got into a very impassioned conversation with State Representative Craig Goldman, in which he took, because she was saying, "Look, there are 8 state Republican Party priorities. You're not working on any of them." And he took the paper, crumpled it up in front of her, and said, "This is what I think about the state Republican Party," threw it in the trash. And he said, "And I think that I don't care about you precinct chairs. You guys are lazy and don't do anything. All I care about are endorsements and donations."
Whoa.
Yep. So, and then the other woman is a lady named Holly Fleming. And Holly is very also involved in the school board. She's trying to get the Fort Worth ISD to stop sexualizing our kids, stop teaching crazy, racial theory and transgender theory, and focus on actual traditional classical education. And she got into a finger pointing, match with him on the steps of the State House down in Austin.
Really?
Where, yeah, she said she was actually kind of, worried that he was going to shove her because it got so heated. So these two women are standing on either side of him, and then they start taking pictures of him too and start sending them to me. And I couldn't believe it. I actually kind of felt bad for Craig at that point in time. I mean,
play stupid games, you get stupid prizes.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll drum this all day long, is that people are seeing past the BS now.
Yeah.
They're looking at it, and if you're real, they can see real.
Right.
Through Trump, I think everybody's bullshit meter has gotten way better.
Yeah.
Trump, Flynn, Paxton. Flynn came out of that. Trump had I'm not saying that he did not have the support, but he at least knew stuff was going on behind his back.
Right.
Man, they came at Flynn like a freight train.
Well,
he had no time to prepare for nothing.
He was the first casualty. Plus, he didn't have the same resources, and
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
they made him so radioactive so early on, and this was before the whole Russiagate scandal got sprung on President Trump. So he didn't have the ability to kind of step in and help Flynn. And Flynn, you're right. He had to do it. He had sold his house and everything to pay for his legal defense and to kind of get through all that. But I'm convinced that man's going to have a prominent position in the next cabinet.
Yeah, he's got plenty of support. Yep. Everybody's going to keep him propped up. But
he knows where the skeletons are in the closet.
Yes, he does. I guarantee he does. But yeah, people. That's when I texted you the day that I voted.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I noticed is people were talking. They were like, you could tell everybody was just like, is your other part of your family paying attention like you're paying attention? Like you could just tell the level of everybody's on point. Like, right. And they're watching, and that's what I'm saying. You can see real, and people are looking for real.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, so.
And it's easier to be real.
It's yeah. Well, and look, Yeah, people want authentic
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
They want
yeah.
people who are just going to level with them. And like I said, I wouldn't have any problem with Craig Goldman if he were to tell people, hey, look, I'm after my own interests here. I was a lobbyist. My brother's a lobbyist. I'm going to D.C. because I want to bite at the apple myself. And if people were to go, okay, well, we'll vote for you because you come from a nice family in Fort Worth and live over by where we do on the west side of Fort Worth, okay, well, then you kind of get what you asked for. But he doesn't. He represents himself to be something that he's not. But people are now starting to unearth his voting record, and they're starting to see that he's not who he originally portrayed him. He was. That's the sad thing. He actually really was. So credit to where credit's due. When Craig first ran for the state legislature, he ran as part of the Tea Party movement. In his first 2 terms in office, he had excellent grassroots scorecards. I mean, people who actually take a look at each single bill that he voted, looked at the way he voted, and scored it and said that was the conservative, side of the vote to take, or that was the liberal side of the vote. And he got A's. So he knew why he was there, and he was representing what he was supposed to be doing. And then he became part of the House leadership team, and then just became completely co-opted and bought in hook, line, and sinker to go along to get along kind of politics. And that's the reason why the state's in the situation that it is today. Why Austin is arguably even a bigger swamp than Washington, D.C. by people who deal with the state a lot. As crazy as that sounds, but there it is.
Well, but I think we've broke the dam. I think we've cracked the dam.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and your point, too, I think part of it was the Paxton impeachment because it caught everybody by surprise. So here it is, the Texas legislature couldn't pass school choice, couldn't pass any bill on border security, which I actually heard an interesting story about that today from Brian Harrison. I'll recount here in a second. But they had time to have a secret investigation of Ken behind the scenes with the Democrats and with the Biden administration, and then brought that out as the last act of the legislative session. People were shocked, and so I think that happened. For a reason, but on the border security. So Brian Harrison said, I think it was HB 20. He said it was a very conservative bill. Would have created a border security force, would have empowered the state to detain, apprehend, put back, criminalize human trafficking and smuggling. It had everything that they wanted. Well, what he said was they scheduled it to come out on a vote with everybody in agreement the last day that they were hearing new motions. And that I didn't know this, but the Speaker of the House is named Dade Phelan. In fact, our Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, who is very conservative, calls him California Dade, which I kind of like that nickname.
Yeah.
But California Dade brings it out. Well, a Democrat makes a point of order, meaning, hey, there's this problem with this punctuation, or this is misspelled, or whatever point of order it is. And normally it's something that just can be easily rectified. Well, Dade Phelan turned and looked at the parliamentarian who Dade Phelan personally put in position, not an elected position. Turns out that the parliamentarian is not only a Democrat, but was in-house White House counsel for Barack Obama. So a inside attorney for Barack Obama's administration is the parliamentarian of the Texas House. Again, controlled by the Republicans, lest I remind you. And what Brian said was they immediately knew it was going to get shot down. But that there is a rule in place that if 10 people vote to oppose the point of order, just 10 people, then it goes to the floor for a vote regardless of what the speaker says. 86 Republicans. They only needed 10 people to stand up and vote for it. They only got 6. They couldn't get 10 of the 86 Republicans to stand up and challenge the point of order because they didn't want to cross the Speaker of the House and lose their power or their position in the legislature.
Oh, my God.
And for that, we didn't have any border security measure passed until, several special sessions later. And it probably wasn't, near as conservative as it could have been.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, these people lack courage. I just don't know what to tell you. I mean, they're
so in it.
Well, there are, yes, there are some who are clearly co-opted and they're part of that swamp. But then there are others who just lack the backbone when push comes to shove, they want to be popular. They want to be liked. They don't want to take the hard stand. I mean, so Nate Schatzline, who's a young, charismatic guy, really, really bright. Hopefully he's got a very bright future in the Texas legislature and manages to stay above all the corruption, which I think he's got the makeup to do it. But, he was talking about the fact that when they were voting for the Speaker of the House, well, Dade Phelan had already gone to the Democrats and already gotten them to all agree to vote in a block. 64 Democrats in unison. Well, you need 76 votes, so you only needed 12 Republicans. And as I said, there's the dirty dozen, the cabal of.
Okay, so I got a question on that. So, if take Washington out of it, because we know that's a slow roll,
right?
But Texas, do they feel it, or do they just not care and they feel like they've got the majority and they're not worried about it right now, or do they feel that the public's had enough?
So it's funny, they didn't while they were in session, because Austin, kind of like D.C., is its own little bubble. And so they were only talking to each other or talking to lobbyists or talking to the media. They weren't talking to the John Q. public or the voters back home. So they were all walking around high-fiving themselves. In fact, they continue to say the most conservative legislative session in history in the state of Texas. Well, not according to the state Republican Party, not according to the voters, not according to what the Republican priority list was. By no stretch of the imagination was it a conservative legislative session. So they went home to, because, again, in Texas, the legislation only meets every other year, and it's supposed to only be, and I don't remember exactly, but it's roughly 4 months at the beginning. Well, because they didn't get these priorities passed, Governor Abbott kept calling him back in the special session. He called them back for 4 special sessions and still didn't get all of his priorities passed. But what happened was, once they left and went home, I think they started to realize, we may really be in trouble. May really have kicked the hornet's nest this time with this Paxton impeachment. Because I started showing up at some of the clubs and the grassroots meetings where some of them would come, and they were hearing, instead of the round of applause and the backslapping and everything like that, they were getting hard questions asked of them.
Yeah.
And people were incensed. And so they went back to the next special session. I think that was kind of, a cathartic experience for them. They were all amongst themselves again, kind of holding hands and singing Kumbaya. And then they went home again and then started feeling it again. So I will tell you, I have seen some of the debates where, unlike Craig Goldman, where some of these other people will at least show up. There was one I kind of felt sorry for. Again, her name's Stephanie Click, and she's the state representative for kind of like North Richland Hills down to Arlington. I don't know the exact makeup of the district, but her challenger is a gentleman named David Lowe. David ran against her the last time and almost won, but had a smear campaign launched against him. And David will admit this. He's a combat veteran. He's on the spectrum, as he describes it. So he's got a little bit of like a flat affect and kind of a, doesn't come across warm and fuzzy, and he had these stories made up about him. And so he lost in a very close race, and frankly, I
remember that.
I think his campaign consultant really lost him the race because he should have reined him in, and he was responding to every single attack or criticism rather than just rising above and letting the truth just kind of bubble out, the way it should, as opposed to giving it oxygen by constantly being on the defensive and giving excuses or this is my side of the story or whatever. And so, anyway, I saw Stephanie Click it was the Metroplex Republican Women's Group, and not fiercely MAGA, but fairly conservative. And she was up there. She gave her opening remarks. They had some prepared questions, and then they opened it up to the audience, to ask questions. And the guy who was actually the timekeeper, because typically you only get so much time to respond, the timekeeper turned and looked at her and said, "Yeah, why did you vote to impeach Ken?" And I literally watched Stephanie Click kind of crumple in on herself and kind of try and give this mealy mouth, well, we felt like, there was enough there that it merited attention so that the Senate could, and you know what? Ken, to his credit, he's out there saying, look, they didn't do due process. They didn't follow the state constitution. They didn't follow Texas code. They didn't allow me an opportunity to respond. They didn't do the hearings in public. They did it in the dead of night with nobody sworn in, nobody under oath, and it was investigators who went and investigated things those people weren't under oath. The investigators weren't under oath. And then the investigators reported back to this secret special committee not under oath. So it was hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay. Nobody knew the evidence. In fact, one of the state representatives that I heard said, hey, can we go see the evidence? No, we don't have time for that. Hey, can we, well, this was Brian Harrison. In fact, he was responding to a question from Ken. Ken said, hey, Brian, what was it that you were told when you were first notified about this impeachment that was coming to the floor the next day? And he said, well, I asked, can I see the evidence? And they said, no. And he said, well, do I have time to read the documents? And I said, well, no. Well, do I have time to hear, from General Paxton's perspective? No. And the question back to Speaker Phelan was, well, why don't I have time to do these things? Well, we're afraid if we give Ken enough time, he'll find a way to weasel out of this. That's how you're going to conduct an impeachment?
Yeah, man, he's got to have a spine this big around. Because, man, I know how it felt what happened to me.
Yeah.
And we're talking low. That's a low level.
Yeah.
I mean, but the feeling that you have when you're being accused of something you didn't do.
Well, and it was all played out in public, and he was under a gag order by the Senate. Dan Patrick put him under a gag order, so he wasn't allowed to rebut. And I know this because I was talking to Ken and trading texts back and forth on a pretty routine basis. In fact, there was a group of us that a couple of other attorney generals, myself, and another close friend of Ken's, and we were texting as the final verdict was being read from the Senate floor, and he was being acquitted and exonerated of all these things.
Yeah, I paid close attention to that.
But what he said at that meeting this morning was, look, he goes, I didn't want to have to go through this. I didn't want to have my family have to go through this, but there was one thing that got me through this, which was you people put me in office. They hoped, they wanted me to quit. And he said, but I wouldn't quit because I'm not going to quit on y'all.
That's what I was about to ask, is how in the heck did he – because I'm just saying that the small thing that I went through and just the hole in my heart. I mean, he had his family behind him, obviously.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying –
even then they were dragging the family into it as well.
Right,
so.
But what I'm saying, when everybody, just even in your family –
it turns against you.
Turns against you, and you're just like, when have I ever done something like this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like junior high, But just that hole that you have in your heart, and you look around and people scowl at you, and they but you have to. He had to have one hell of a team behind him, keeping him. Well, it was his constituents, but I'm just saying that took a lot.
Yeah.
To get through that.
Well, a funny thing is,
so
he said that,
my hat's off to you, Ken Paxton. My God.
So
I know a piece that big of what I went through, and it was enough hell for me.
Well,
I came out the other side smelling good, but go ahead.
The funny thing is, he said the very first phone call he got was from President Trump.
I'm sure it was.
And he said, so how does it feel? And Ken said, like I've been hitting my head up against a wall for 4 months, and I just stopped. And Donald Trump said, feels good, doesn't it? He said, oh, God, yeah, just the pain just finally stopped. And then Ken laughed and he goes, well, now I know a little bit about what you're going through. So, in fact, when these attack pieces came out on me, I texted them to Ken and I started laughing. And I said, so I have now faced just a smidgen of what you've faced. And he wrote back and he said, well, that's a very good sign, but be prepared. There's a whole lot more coming. So,
well, but here's here's what I think, what you just said. Out of everybody that's gone through this, is watching Trump just dig his freaking heels in every time he digs. And if everybody will do that, we can win this thing. I mean, and it almost it gives you confidence to say, hey, I'm standing my ground, man. I'm not backing down.
So here's the funny thing, and I know people say that courage is in short supply, or I'm afraid the mob's going to come at me. Well, again, and this just isn't like some sloganeering. I mean, I'm in this because I feel like God's called me to come step up and try and do my small part in this thing. And so, at first, I was very angry and kind of bitter at the attacks or the direction the country was headed. And I realized, pretty early on, look, God doesn't call us to come at this with this anger or hostility. In fact, we're supposed to forgive our trespassers as we forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And so I started praying and said, look, God, just please turn my heart to a joyful heart so I can be a happy warrior in this fight for you, to bring honor and glory to you. And I'm not saying it happened like that, but all of a sudden I kind of woke up one day and
day by day it does.
I just had this kind of energy about me, and all of a sudden I realized, man, I didn't care. I didn't care what people were saying. I didn't care what attacks were being levied at me. I didn't care. In fact, I would just laugh. I laughed to the point where my campaign manager actually got upset with me at one point and said, "No, John, this is really serious." And I just laughed at him. I said, I don't see it as being serious, and not only that, I think it's ultimately going to work out for us in the end. I mean, God has a way of flipping it around.
Yes, He does. If it wasn't for Him, we'll talk about that. We don't have time to talk about that today, but I've said it on some of the podcasts before, man. I had to have everything work perfect to get where I'm at. I mean,
and you see how it just lines up
day by day.
Yep.
John, I needed $10,000 to get, because till my bankruptcy was final, to where I could sell my house and do all my stuff, get into my other areas where I have, investments where I can, because the drill. They can't touch your house or your trust or whatever, but right. I'm just saying, you can't have any money either.
Right.
So I had to have things work perfect, and one thing didn't work perfect, and I needed $10,000. I don't know if I told you this story or not, but I'm sitting at my desk trying to figure out how I'm going to make $10,000. And I was like, I've done this before. I can figure this out. And I had stuff out in my shop that I could sell. I had some stuff that I could have gotten rid of. And I'm freaking out about it, to the point where my attorney is like, "Hey, man, I'm flush with cash up here. I just got a good settlement. Come up here. I'll loan you the money." I said, "I can't do that. I can't do that. I cannot do that." I'm sitting at my desk just freaking out. Okay. 5 minutes later, after I'm freaked out, I said a little prayer. It's like, "Man, just show me what's up, please." My phone rings 5 minutes later, and it's my bank. And they said, "Hey, Mark, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm doing all right."
Right.
She said, "Well, I just wanted to let you know that 2 years ago, I was starting a company that I was starting." She said, "I'm just letting you know, tax time's up and we got to clean our books up. And we have 2 cashier's checks up here that you never cashed 2 years ago. One of them's for $10,000 and one of them's for $8,000. Feel free to come pick them up."
Yeah.
Is that not?
You said God doesn't answer prayers.
Woohoo!
Well, look, but my whole point about that is that while, yes, you need the courage to enter into the fight. But again, if you turn things over to God, as far as, praying to Him, asking for direction, continuing to remember that it's serving Him, that's really what's important, being obedient to God, all of a sudden you'll find the burden's light. I mean, He says, my yoke is light, and it doesn't. So people are like going, "Oh my gosh, Sean, I don't know how you're holding up," and I'm like, "No, I'm doing fine. In fact,
God's got
great.
God's got a big dumpster."
They're like, "You're not tired?" I'm like, "No, I'm enjoying this. I'm energized. I'm in this. How you feel? It's going great. People are coming up and saying, I voted for you. Thank you for running. We're behind you." And I said, and again, it's not. I always remember it's not about me, so I don't let that go to my head, but it's just an indicator to me of how the progress is going. And look, apparently the opposition sees it too, because they wouldn't be spending the money they're spending against me, and they wouldn't be frazzled the way they appear to be frazzled if we weren't making significant inroads. And this time next week, we'll be, because the polls close at 7 o'clock on March 5th. Yep.
Well, I think what they fear is exactly what we just got talking about. They fear that they've woken up the God-fearing people, and there's a lot of us that have been called to do certain things. That's why I started this, and I think that everybody was, and I'm not saying that I know that, but I see it in some of my friends that were just kind of lost in the weeds and Democrat. Left link that are like, "Oh, man, this is way too far. This is not what we thought we were being sold. This is good versus evil. This is right and wrong. This isn't we believe in flowers and having fun and all that. No, this is right and wrong."
Yep.
And our kids have to grow up, and the kids and grandkids have to grow up in this. And man, if we don't save this thing now, we're cooked. And I think the whole world sees it.
Yeah. No. Well, in fact, I've lived in South America for a period of time, and I've had some friends contact me and say, "Man, what in the holy name of is happening up there? You understand, right? We need you. We need America to be that example. We need you to be that shining city on the hill." That's who we look up to. And when all of a sudden we see you going the way of a banana republic and being run almost as if it's a dictatorship, you got a president who clearly has been bribed and corrupted. You have a president who clearly has cognitive decline. I mean, the special investigation on his documents, which he was never entitled to have because he was a senator or the vice president. He was not subject to the Presidential Records Act. And he had these confidential classified documents. The people who did the special investigation that quote unquote cleared him of it said, no, he's guilty of it, but he's not competent to stand trial. So he's not competent to stand trial, but he's competent to occupy the White House. So, I mean, if you're not going to have a red pill moment, in this day and age, I don't know what it's going to take to break through your derangement syndrome.
Yeah. So I think about the job that I was bidding. Well, the job that I bid and got, just couldn't use our technology on over in Kuwait.
Mm-hmm.
I was dealing with two of the sheikhs that their dad was the emir of Kuwait, and we were there for a week and a half. And it turned out, I'll tell you that story down the road. But it turned out this one sheikh went to University
UT.
of
I remember you telling me he was a UT grad.
Yeah. So me and him hit it off great, and we knew all the same people. His best friend's the last name Davis, so you know what family I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not one of the bad ones, but it's one of the nephews. He runs the Fort Worth Western Railroad, and I was working with him on a deal, and they were really going to help me out. That whole cement deal I was working on.
Right.
So, but we had this talk. They brought us to their house, entertained us, and we had and there were people from South Africa, just people that they do business with. They had some deals going in Saudi Arabia 2 days before, and we're just sitting at a table of 10 to 15 people. And this conversation got brought up by one of the sheikhs. He said, whether y'all believe in our God or not, we know that there's a God, but y'all are losing it in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
But here's my point on that is over there, you can feel, whether it's Allah or God, you can feel God in their country. You can feel it.
Well, they're definitely, a pious people.
Yeah. And it's not the I didn't feel unsafe there. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, so I kind of know how that part of the world gets down. But I'm just saying, they were like, it's really sad what's happening in your. We look up to y'all's country. Same thing.
Yeah.
We need y'all to be y'all.
Hey.
We need y'all to be the God-fearing Americans. In God we trust. That's what we need.
Vladimir Putin has scolded the West and said, "You guys have lost your way. You've gone into this crazy progressive ideology," and lectured us. I mean, and look again, two things can be true at the same time. I think. Vladimir Putin can be a bad guy, but I think he can also be accurate when he says, look, for us, the Russian people, we're not going into this whole LGBTQ plus ideology. We're not turning our back on our Russian Orthodox
beliefs.
Beliefs. I mean, we're going to stay traditional. We're going to celebrate our culture and our heritage and hold on to our values. And it's become so passé here in the West. And, I mean,
I think that's why everybody's being called, though.
Well, yes, but I mean, the perfect epitome of it. If you turn on the talking heads on MSNBC, the Joy Reids, the Joe Scarboroughs, the Mika Brzezinskis, and you listen to it, they throw this term out now like a pejorative, and they speak about, like, for example, Speaker Mike Johnson. Now I'm talking about the Speaker of Congress, the House of Representatives in D.C., not down in Austin, but they call Speaker Mike Johnson a Christian nationalist. Okay, so what's wrong with being Christian and what's wrong with being a nationalist? You're supposed to love God and follow Christ, and you're supposed to love your country. So now if all of a sudden you string those two words together, that somehow means you're, like, what, alt-right, far-right, neo-Nazi. I mean, what? I don't get it. But they throw that around as a pejorative. And they keep saying that, Speaker Johnson says that, he actually has a biblical worldview. Well, good. We need more people in D.C. who've got a little bit of moral background in them and are, have kind of some Christian faith.
Yeah, kind of. But I don't want to jump subject. Yesterday, I had Guy here, which he's the one that sells all the MAGA gear at the Trump rallies.
Yeah.
So we're talking because we're doing some collab stuff. And I was telling him the story about Tommy Lee Jones.
Mm-hmm.
The whole his dad, his grandfather going to the majors and all that. I said he's going to be the third African. And he said, let me stop you right there because Guy's black. Okay, he's been on the podcast. He said, let me stop you right there and tell you something. He said that pisses us off. That offends us. I'm a black American. I'm not an African American.
Right. Yeah, I've always just said the term black because...
Yeah, but no, I never paid attention to that. And he brought it up, and he was like, look, I'm not mad at you, but I'm just telling you that we're not African Americans. We're black Americans.
Right.
And I was like, wow. He's like, he said, it's just, that's been ingrained in your head, but that's not what we are. We're black Americans.
Yeah, well...
It was cool. I said it one more time, and he was like,
No, I love Tommy Lee. He's a great guy.
When was the last time you talked to him?
I spoke to him a little over a month ago, I think. I had to call him up for something on behalf of the old company.
I'm going to call him. I've been talking about him. I looked for his spot up there at WinStar. Couldn't find it.
Oh.
His parking spot.
Yeah. I've not seen him roll that way, but I bet he rolls big when he goes up there and plays.
Yes, he does. I asked a few people if they knew who he was, and they knew who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good for him. He deserves all the success he gets.
Oh, man. What a success story that guy is.
Yeah. Well, what a great country, huh?
Hey, welcome to America.
Yeah.
It's still America.
For the time being. Hopefully we have good results on March 5th, Super Tuesday, and we can get into the fight to help save
We will.
country.
Is there anything else we can do?
No, get out and vote. It's critical. I mean, that's the endorsement I need right now is you and your vote. And please take other people, tell other people, I'm an America First candidate, endorsed by our Attorney General Ken Paxton, endorsed by Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. I'm an outsider, business person. So in that sense, I bear a lot of, kind of similarities to President Trump and his story. Not a few less digits in my bank account, but
yeah.
And then and he needs people there who are going to go support his legislative session so that we can turn this country around. In fact, like I said, that's what they attacked me for saying I'm no longer consider myself a conservative. And we've got to get back to our Constitution. I mean, we have to, or all hope is lost.
Yeah.
I mean, Rome fell, and that's what our founding fathers patterned our republic after, because we are a constitutional republic. And it went from a constitutional republic to an empire. Unfortunately for us, our ruling oligarchs don't want to take us to an empire. They want to manage the decline of this country because they're all globalists, and they just can't have American exceptionalism continue to serve as that role model. Like to your point, the people in the Middle East or in South America or other parts of the world look at us and say, that's what we should aspire to.
Well, and they're, especially Saudi Arabia, man, I don't even think they're paying attention anymore. They're doing their own thing.
Well, can you blame them?
No.
I mean, we've gone off the rails.
I know.
I mean, that's, so it's funny. Everybody talks about when they talk about, kind of Saudi Arabia and look, you can debate how strong an ally they really are, but I don't fault them for trying to get off the U.S. dollar. We have just spent the last 3 years destroying our own currency.
Yeah.
We've devalued the dollar 20%. Well, if you're sitting on dollar reserve so you can conduct business around the world, and yet you see the U.S. government's not conducting its business in a serious manner and has devalued your holdings by 20%, don't you look for some other alternative so that they can't continue to devalue your holdings?
Man, I tell you what, have you ever been to the Middle East?
No.
Man, it is not, and I'm not pro. I got a friend of mine that it just makes his skin crawl when I tell him that how great it is over there. And how not, he's like, oh, no, I'm not going, I'm staying right here. They're all thinking I was going to Kuwait to die. They were like, man, you sure you're going to go over there? And I was like, yeah, I'm going over there. It ain't that big of a deal. They're nice people. I mean, it's like you got to stop and say, hey, man, I can't carry all these gifts back. I I'm gonna have to go. We'll buy you more luggage and we'll ship it for you, and they will.
Wow.
That's. But my point is it's not what people think. It's. You come back here, and I'm not down. I'm not an anti-American guy at all. But I'm just saying, you fly back into DFW airport, and you're like, oh, Jesus, I'm in the United States again. You know.
Well, we need to.
Our infrastructure is a dump compared to the.
Well, and that's what just appalls me to no end. The fact that we're over $34 trillion in debt, and give me an accounting of where it went. Show me where are the new shiny cities, the new highways, the new medical or facilities, or
sitting right there on 820, nothing but traffic. That's 20 years obsolete. I had to go pick up Larson today because that's I'm about to ask you that, and we can end it on this. Yeah, just finished all that 820 construction. Cost you $13 to get through here on the toll road.
Mm-hmm.
I got lost in my own town.
Yeah.
Speaking of, he lives up off of 287. Is it Bond Ranch Road, Larson?
Yeah, around there.
What's your city? Is that Saginaw?
Yeah.
Is Saginaw your district?
You're in my district, Larson.
Okay, well,
there's one vote.
Yeah, I'm taking him to vote on the way home.
Okay. Because
I'll let you. Okay. Nobody will take him.
Well, now I only need 42,999 more.
Yeah. So I asked him, I said, have you voted yet? Because I'm pretty sure that's your district.
Yep.
He said, no, nobody will take me. And I said, well, he doesn't know that yet, but I'll take him today.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, everybody get out and vote. I actually am encouraging people to take use of the early vote because you never know what could happen on Election Day, like we saw in Arizona this last election cycle. Make sure that your vote counts. If you're one of those people who really are so concerned about there being a possible steal that you want to wait until it's Election Day, then get in there early. What I can tell you now as a candidate, and I know it's true, is that we start to tend to focus on the people who are remaining they haven't cast their vote yet. So the more people that go ahead and vote early, we can start to narrow down our focus on people that we think are going to be supportive of us and continue to focus the messaging, the emails, the texting, door knocking, things of that nature. Plus, once you vote, all that stops.
Yep.
You stop getting hassled too.
Well, man, I am 100% calm. I can just tell by the way you are right now that I can see it in you. Like you feel good. You know what I mean?
I fought the good fight.
Yeah, you did. I mean, because I know you in other areas of life, but I can tell you're having fun. Your friend that you brought the other day, that guy was hilarious.
Barron? Yeah, Barron's. I love Barron to death, man. And look, I mean, I met him because of this, and I've met Barron's unique, so I'm not gonna. But for every Barron, I mean, there literally are over 200 people that show up at the same events or show up at the polling work or whatever, and they all get along. They all really enjoy each other, and it's funny. It's become this like network of friends. I mean, they're on these text exchanges.
Well, hell,
Telegram
send me the next time y'all do something like that.
All right, for sure. Yeah. I'll introduce you to him. Barron's just emblematic of the group at large.
Well, he when he was here, we talked for about 20, 30 minutes out in the parking lot, and I gave him one of those. He was like, yeah, man, I want that. But he's going to come back on, and
good.
That's what he said. He said, yeah, I want to come up here one night when y'all are just hanging out and drinking and smoking cigars. That sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are fun. So, yeah. But, all right. Well, I appreciate it, John.
Yep.
And,
going to run through the tape.
Huh?
Going to run through the tape.
Run through the tape, man. Okay. Get out and vote. Make America great again and make Alphas great again. That's our new billboard. We'll get that on the billboards right now. But you're still up, by the way. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
All right. Please like, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. We need some subscribers. We need some. We need some more. So ring the bell. Comments, boys and girls. We're on Rumble. Come to Rumble. Rumble is a lot more fun. We can do what we want to over there. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. JoinTheMen'sClub.com is the website. Contact at JoinTheMen'sClub.com is the email. Y'all have a great day. Thank you.